All right, today we're diving into something really cool. Scientists have basically created a molecular assembly line, and it's all about building the advanced plastics of the future. Let's get into it. And right off the bat, I want to be clear. This isn't just some neat experiment stuck in a lab. This kind of breakthrough is a big deal. It ties directly into huge global goals. We're talking about building better, more resilient infrastructure, and really pushing innovation for a more sustainable world. So you got to ask, right? How do you build the future? It sounds so grand. Well, what if I told you the answer is one molecule at a time? Because that's exactly what this research is showing us. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why we even need these new plastics. Then we'll get into the chemistry problem that seemed impossible to solve. After that, we'll look at the incredible solution, this molecular assembly line. We'll see how it works, check out the proof, and then wrap up with why this is such a big deal for material science.
All right, let's jump right in. The plastic of tomorrow. What's the big deal? Why are scientists pouring so much effort into creating these new materials? Well, it turns out we're chasing a really special kind of hybrid material. Now, the technical name is a mouthful, a polar polyolefin block copolymer. But what it does is what's important. This stuff is incredibly valuable. It could be the key to things like way more efficient energy storage, better batteries, and even developing much better ways to recycle plastics. The dream here is to build materials from the ground up with the exact properties you need for a specific job. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's a huge catch. For the longest time, making these materials has been seen as practically impossible. Why? Because the basic ingredients and the chemical recipes to combine them, well, they just don't play nicely together at all.
So let's break down this problem. Think of it like you have two completely different personalities. On one side, you've got polyethylene. It's tough, it's slippery, and it's made from a gas. On the other side, you have polyacrylate. This one's sticky, it can be really specialized, and it's made from a liquid. So not only are the materials themselves total opposites, but the way you make them, the chemical processes, are just fundamentally incompatible. It's the classic oil and water problem, but for high-tech materials, you just can't get them to mix in one smooth process.
And that's the core challenge, right there. For years, chemists have been stumped. How do you combine two totally different, even hostile chemical processes into a single, continuous system? You couldn't just, stick two pipes together and hope for the best. It just wouldn't work. And that is what makes this so exciting. This is the big breakthrough. A team of researchers came up with an absolutely brilliant solution. They designed what you can honestly think of as a microscopic factory, a molecular assembly line for building these custom materials. The core idea here is something called continuous flow chemistry. So instead of the old way, dumping everything into a giant vat and stirring it up, which can be messy and inconsistent, this is different. Imagine a tiny, perfectly controlled river. You feed your ingredients into the stream at exactly the right points, and the chemical reactions happen as everything flows along. The result? You get insane precision, incredible control, and this is key, it's way easier to scale up for mass production.
Okay, and this right here, this is the truly genius part of their system. On the left, that's how things used to be done. You'd use a gas, something inert like nitrogen, basically just to create little bubbles and push the liquid chemicals through the tube. But look at the new method on the right. The gas isn't just a passive pusher anymore. No way. It's an active ingredient. They're using ethylene gas itself as one of the fundamental building blocks of the plastic. This is a total game changer. Nobody had managed to do this before.
All right, so how does this magical assembly line actually work? Let's break down the two-step process that finally gets these two incompatible molecules to join forces. So what you're looking at here is the whole setup. It looks complex, but it's actually super elegant. On the left, you've got reactor 1. That's where the first half of the molecule gets built. Then that new material flows right into reactor 2 on the right, and that's where the second, totally different part gets tacked on. It all happens in one smooth, continuous flow. Just a beautiful piece of engineering. Okay, so here's the play-by-play, step by step. First, in reactor 1, ethylene gas and a catalyst get to work building that tough polyethylene chain. Cool. Then, that chain flows into the second reactor, and that's where the sticky acrylate liquid gets added. Now, the acrylate latches onto the catalyst at the end of the chain, and it kind of just pauses the whole reaction. But here comes the magic trick. They shine a beam of simple blue light onto the reactor, And that light acts like a switch. It flips the catalyst, breaks its bond, and creates a brand new super reactive spot on the end of the chain. That spot instantly starts grabbing all the acrylate molecules around it, building that second block right onto the first. I mean, think about that. A single catalyst doing two totally different jobs, and all you need to switch it over is a beam of light. It's incredible.
Okay, the theory is mind-blowing for sure, but in chemistry, you can't just take someone's word for it. You need proof. So how did they know it actually worked? How could they be sure they'd made a brand new material?
This graph right here is basically the smoking gun. It's from a machine that sorts molecules by size. That black peak, that's the before picture. It's the first polymer block they made in reactor 1. Now look at the red peak. That's the after picture. See how it's shifted over? That means the molecules got a whole lot bigger and heavier. And that is the definitive proof that yes, they successfully grew that second block right onto the first one. It worked!
And of course, being good scientists, they didn't just stop there. They threw a whole battery of other tests at this new material. They used all sorts of different techniques to look at it from every angle, confirming every piece of the puzzle. And all the data pointed to the same conclusion. They had created a single brand new molecule, where two very different parts were now chemically locked together. Success!
Okay, so they proved it works. Now let's zoom back out. What does this actually mean? Why does creating this molecular assembly line even matter for the future? I think the researchers themselves put it perfectly. They said they've demonstrated a striking tool for making these advanced materials. And the key words here are precisely controlled architectures and desirable properties. They basically created a tool that lets us build the exact material we want on demand with a level of precision we just couldn't get before.
So let's recap the big takeaways here. First, they found a way to combine two chemical processes that everyone thought were totally incompatible. Second, this is the first time anyone has used the gas not just to push things along, but as an actual core ingredient. Third, they figured out how to use a single catalyst that can be switched on for a completely new job with just a flick of a light switch. And all of this together gives us incredible control and, maybe most importantly, opens the door to actually producing these advanced materials on a large scale.
And all of this leaves us with a really exciting question to think about. If we can now build custom materials on a molecular assembly line, if we can essentially program molecules with this kind of precision, what's the next big problem we should solve with it? The possibilities, honestly, are just starting to unfold.